Most people believe that understanding others begins with asking questions. They assume insight comes from talking more, explaining more, choosing the right words in the right sequence. But that belief quietly keeps them unaware. Because the truth is simple. People reveal far more when they are not speaking. Think about the moments that stayed with you the longest. Not the loud conversations or dramatic confessions, but the pauses. The looks that lasted a little too long. The silence after a question that should have been easy to answer. You've felt it before. That moment when someone says, "I'm fine," but their body disagrees. Their shoulders tense, their eyes drift away, their breathing shifts. And without knowing exactly why, you sense that something is off. That feeling isn't intuition, it's observation, untrained but real. Most people miss it because they're busy preparing their next sentence. They're focused on being liked, understood, accepted, so they rush to fill the silence. They talk, they explain, they interrupt the very space where truth begins to surface. But when you stop doing that, when you learn to remain calm, quiet, and fully present, something changes. People begin to show you who they really are, not because you pressure them, not because you interrogate them, but because silence removes the mask. This audiobook is not about manipulation. It's not about tricks, hacks, or control. It's about clarity. It's about learning to see people as they are, not as they present themselves. About understanding intentions without demanding explanations. About recognizing confidence, insecurity, honesty, and tension without a single word being spoken. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The calmer you are, the more information you receive. Emotion clouds perception. Neediness distorts judgment. The urge to respond too quickly blinds you. Calmness does the opposite. Calmness slows time. It sharpens awareness. It creates space between what you feel and what you choose to do. And in that space, you see everything. You notice how people sit before they speak, how they enter a room, how they react when they believe no one is watching, how their energy shifts when a topic touches something sensitive. These signals are not random, they are consistent. And once you learn to recognize them, you stop guessing. You stop overthinking messages. You stop replaying conversations in your mind. You stop wondering what people truly meant because you already understand. This skill changes more than conversations. It changes relationships. It changes power dynamics. It changes how safe, grounded, and confident you feel around others. When you understand people without forcing words out of them, you no longer chase clarity. You attract it. Over the next 60 minutes, you'll train a quieter form of intelligence. Not the kind that impresses rooms, but the kind that understands them. You'll learn how silence communicates, how the body speaks before the mind decides what to say, how emotional control gives you a natural advantage, not over others but within yourself. This isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming steady, because the people who see the most are rarely the ones speaking the loudest. They're the ones watching, waiting, allowing others to reveal themselves. Silence isn't empty, it's full of information. And once you learn how to read it, you'll never listen the same way again. Chapter 1. Why silence reveals the truth. Silence makes most people uncomfortable, not because it is empty, but because it removes protection. When words disappear, there's nowhere to hide. From a young age, you're taught that communication means speaking clearly, explaining yourself, filling gaps. Silence is treated like a mistake, an awkward pause that must be rescued, so people rush to fill it. They speak faster, they laugh unnecessarily, they offer information that was never requested, and in doing so, they reveal far more than they intend. Silence is a psychological mirror. When nothing is being said, the nervous system speaks instead. The body cannot perform silence the way the mouth performs language. It reacts honestly. Muscles tighten or release. Breathing changes. Eyes search for escape or lock into control. Posture collapses or straightens. These reactions happen before thought, before strategy, before self-editing. Words are chosen. Silence is not. That is why silence reveals the truth. When someone is comfortable with who they are and what they feel, silence feels neutral. It doesn't threaten their identity. They don't rush to explain or justify themselves. They remain steady, grounded, present. But when someone is hiding something, fear, insecurity, dishonesty, internal conflict, silence becomes pressure, and under pressure, systems leak. You've seen this before, even if you never labeled it. You ask a simple question. There's a pause that lasts just a second too long. Their eyes move away before they answer. They clear their throat. They adjust their posture. Nothing dramatic happens, but something shifts. That shift is information. Most people miss it because they're trained to focus on content instead of behavior. They listen to what is said, not how the body reacts before it's said. They're already preparing a reply, already managing how they appear. Silence requires a different kind of attention. It asks you to slow down. When you don't rush to speak, you give the other person time to expose their internal state. You allow the moment to stretch just enough for discomfort or calm to surface. And here's the key: you don't create the discomfort, you simply allow it. That's why silence is powerful without being aggressive. You're not interrogating, you're not accusing, you're not applying force, you're simply not rescuing them from themselves. In silence, people begin to project. They fill the gap with nervous explanations, defensive humor, excessive justifications, or emotional leakage. Or they do the opposite. They withdraw, shut down, avoid. Both responses reveal something real. Silence strips away social scripts. Words are learned. Silence is primal. Social language is built on rehearsed patterns, politeness, charm, deflection, storytelling. People know how to use words to manage impressions. They know how to sound confident, caring, intelligent, or harmless. But silence disrupts those patterns. When there is nothing to perform, the mask starts to loosen. This is why emotionally intelligent people often speak less. Not because they lack something to say, but because they understand timing. They know that the person who controls the pace of a conversation controls the flow of information, and pace lives in silence. When you remain calm and quiet, you're not dominating the interaction, you're stabilizing it. That stability creates contrast. Against your stillness, the other person's reactions become clearer. You begin to notice patterns. Who rushes to fill space? Who becomes uneasy without validation? Who relaxes when pressure is removed? Who stiffens when control slips? These patterns repeat, and repetition reveals truth. Silence also exposes your own internal state. If silence makes you anxious, that is information too. It shows where you seek approval, where you fear judgment, where you confuse being heard with being valued. Learning to sit comfortably in silence is not just a social skill, it's emotional discipline. It trains you to regulate impulses, to pause instead of react, to observe instead of assume. And when you do this, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop leaking your own information unnecessarily. You stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned access. You stop talking your way out of your intuition. You stop weakening your position through oversharing. Silence brings you back to center. This is why silence is often mistaken for confidence. Not because silence itself is confidence, but because it signals self-regulation. It shows that you are not dependent on constant feedback to remain steady. People feel that, and when they feel it, they respond more honestly, sometimes without realizing it. Silence doesn't force truth out of people. It removes the noise that hides it. As you move forward in this audiobook, remember this foundation. Understanding others does not begin with decoding them. It begins with containing yourself. Your calm creates the conditions. Your silence reveals the signal. And once you learn to stay present in quiet moments, you'll realize the truth was never hidden. It was simply waiting for you to stop talking long enough to notice it. Chapter 2. The body speaks before the mind. Before a person decides what to say, their body has already reacted. This happens faster than thought, faster than intention, faster than strategy. The mind can rehearse words. The body cannot rehearse instinct. That's why the body always goes first. When something unexpected happens, an uncomfortable question, a sensitive topic, a sudden shift in power, the nervous system responds immediately. Muscles tighten or release. Breathing changes rhythm. The spine adjusts. Weight shifts. Hands move toward protection or control. Only after this does the mind step in to explain. Most people believe the opposite. They think thoughts come first and actions follow. But in real human interaction, the body sends the first signal. The mind arrives later, trying to justify what has already occurred. If you want to understand people without words, this is where your attention must live. Not in their stories, not in their explanations, but in their first reaction. The body is designed for survival, not performance. It doesn't care how someone wants to be seen. It only cares about safety, threat, comfort, and control. That makes it brutally honest. A relaxed body tells you one thing. A guarded body tells you another. And these signals appear even when someone is trying to look calm. You'll notice it in subtle ways. A person says they're confident, but their shoulders rise slightly toward their ears. Someone claims they're open, yet their torso angles away from you. They insist they're listening, but their feet are already pointed toward the exit. These are not coincidences. They are unconscious disclosures. The mistake most people make is waiting too long. They focus on what comes after the explanation instead of what happened before it. But the first movement, the initial shift, is where the truth lives because it wasn't filtered. Once the mind engages, everything becomes adjustable. People correct their posture, they steady their voice, they select words carefully, they perform the version of themselves they want you to see. But the body has already spoken. Learning to read this doesn't require obsession or over-analysis. It requires stillness. When you're calm, perception widens. You stop chasing meaning and start noticing signals. You notice how someone enters a room before greeting anyone. You notice whether their body expands or contracts around certain people. You notice how quickly they recover from being surprised. These patterns tell you more than any sentence ever could. There's a reason emotionally reactive people miss this information. When your own nervous system is activated, when you're anxious, excited, defensive, or eager, you lose bandwidth. Your attention collapses inward. You're too busy managing yourself to observe others. Calm restores perception. This is why silence and body awareness work together. Silence slows the moment. It gives the body time to speak before the mind takes over. Watch what happens when you ask a question and don't rush the answer. You'll see the inhale, the brief freeze, the subtle adjustment. That adjustment isn't random. It's the body deciding how safe it feels. Safety creates openness. Threat creates control. Uncertainty creates leakage. The body doesn't lie about these states. And once you start seeing them, confusion fades. You stop wondering why someone's words feel wrong. You already know because their body told you first. This skill changes how you move through the world. You stop arguing with people's narratives. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop taking explanations personally. Instead, you observe alignment. Do their words and their body tell the same story? Or does one contradict the other? When there's alignment, trust feels easy. When there isn't, tension appears, even if you can't name it yet. That tension is data. This awareness also changes how you manage your own presence. You become conscious of what you're signaling before you speak. You notice how often your body reveals hesitation, defensiveness, or overinvestment. And instead of forcing confidence, you regulate from the inside. You slow your breathing, you ground your posture, you let your body settle before your mouth opens. This doesn't make you rigid, it makes you coherent. People respond differently to coherence. They feel safer, less defensive, more real. And when people feel safe or uncertain but not pressured, they reveal themselves. The goal isn't to control anyone. The goal is to see clearly, and clarity always begins before language. As you continue, remember this: words are explanations. The body is evidence. If you learn to watch what happens before someone speaks, you'll understand what their words are trying to protect, hide, or reinforce. The body speaks first. The mind explains later. Once you train your attention to catch that first signal, you'll realize you were never missing information. You were simply listening too late. Chapter 3. Eye contact, comfort versus control. Eye contact is one of the most misunderstood signals in human interaction. Most people are taught a simple rule: good eye contact equals confidence. Poor eye contact equals insecurity. But reality is more precise and far more revealing. Eye contact isn't about confidence, it's about regulation. When someone holds your gaze comfortably, without stiffness or intensity, it usually means their internal state is settled. They aren't managing fear. They aren't performing dominance. They're simply present. But when eye contact becomes exaggerated, too fixed, too sharp, too deliberate, it often signals control, not confidence. The eyes don't just look, they manage distance. They decide how close someone feels, how exposed they feel, how much power is being negotiated in silence. That's why the quality of eye contact matters more than duration. A calm gaze is flexible. It moves naturally. It breaks and returns without tension. A controlling gaze is rigid. It holds too long. It challenges rather than connects. And an avoidant gaze isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's protection. The mistake most people make is interpreting eye behavior in isolation. They see avoidance and assume fear. They see intensity and assume strength. But context changes everything. Someone avoiding eye contact while their body is relaxed may simply be reflective, private, or conserving energy. Someone locking eyes while tense in their posture may be asserting control because they feel threatened. The eyes are rarely lying, but they are always responding to something. This is where silence becomes essential again. When words stop, eye behavior becomes clearer. Without conversation to manage, people reveal how comfortable they are being seen. Watch what happens when a conversation pauses. Does their gaze soften? Do they look away briefly, then return? Or do they stare, waiting for you to fill the space? Each response carries information. Comfortable people don't fear gaps in connection. They don't rush to secure attention. They trust the moment. Insecure or controlling people often struggle here. They either break eye contact too quickly to avoid exposure or hold it too long to dominate the silence. Neither is accidental. Eye contact also shifts when truth is nearby. As someone approaches a sensitive subject, you may notice micro changes. Blinking increases, gaze drops, eyes flick sideways. These movements happen before words adjust. The mind hasn't caught up yet. This doesn't automatically mean deception. Often it signals internal conflict between what they feel and what they plan to say. Truth creates friction, and friction shows up in the eyes. Another common misunderstanding is believing that people who avoid eye contact are hiding something from you. Often they're hiding something from themselves. Eye contact brings awareness. Avoidance reduces it. That's why some people look away when emotions rise. Not to deceive you, but to regulate themselves. Understanding this prevents misjudgment. It keeps you from labeling too quickly. Observation without assumption is what separates insight from paranoia. There's a deeper layer here. Eye contact reveals how someone relates to power. People who feel secure don't need to dominate visually. They allow eye contact to breathe. They don't chase it or resist it. People who feel powerless may either submit visually by looking down or overcompensate with intensity. Neither behavior is chosen consciously. The eyes negotiate status long before words do. Once you start noticing this, you'll sense shifts in conversations you never noticed before. You'll feel when someone is aligning with you, when they're resisting, when they're guarding territory. And just as important, you'll notice your own habits. Do you look away when you feel exposed? Do you stare when you feel challenged? Do you seek eye contact to be reassured? These patterns reveal how your nervous system responds to connection. Learning to regulate your own gaze is part of emotional discipline, not forcing eye contact, not avoiding it, but allowing it to match your internal calm. When your gaze is relaxed, people feel less threatened, less judged, less pressured to perform, and within that sense of safety, people reveal more. This is why interrogations fail and quiet presence works. Pressure activates defense. Calm presence invites truth. Eye contact is not about staring someone down. It's about allowing someone to be seen without force. When steady silence is paired with relaxed eye contact, something powerful happens. People either soften or reveal where they can't. Both outcomes bring clarity. Remember this as you continue. The eyes don't tell you everything, but they tell you how safe the truth feels. And once you can read that, you stop needing words to confirm what you already see. You understand the difference between comfort and control, not because someone explained it, but because their eyes showed you first. Chapter 4. Micro-reactions. You're overlooking most of what people reveal. It never reaches the level of expression you're taught to notice. It doesn't appear as a statement. It doesn't announce itself as emotion. It shows up and disappears in fractions of a second. A tightening of the jaw, a flicker in the eyes, a brief inhale that doesn't match the moment. These are micro-reactions, and they are among the most honest signals a person gives. They happen too quickly to control. Before the mind can intervene, the body reacts. And if you're paying attention, not analyzing, not judging, you catch them. Most people don't. They wait for something obvious, a change in tone, a dramatic gesture, a contradiction in words. But truth often slips through quietly, in movements so small they're easy to dismiss. That's exactly why they matter. Micro-reactions occur at the moment of contact. When a stimulus touches something internal, a topic, a name, a memory, a suggestion, the nervous system registers it instantly. The body responds. Then the mind steps in to smooth things over. If you only pay attention after that smoothing happens, you miss the signal. This becomes especially important in silence. When no one is speaking, the body has less cover. It can't hide behind language or distraction. That's when micro-reactions are clearest. Watch what happens when you mention a specific subject and then stop talking. Not what they say next, but what happens before they speak. A brief freeze, a subtle posture shift, a quick swallow. These reactions don't tell you exactly what someone is thinking, but they tell you where the emotional charge is, and emotional charge is always relevant. People are skilled at managing large reactions. They know how to hide anger, fear, or excitement once it fully forms, but micro-reactions slip through because they're unplanned. They're reflexive. This is why emotionally reactive people struggle to read them. When your attention is noisy, when you're thinking about what to say, how to respond, how you're being perceived, you miss the quiet signals. Stillness sharpens perception. The calmer you are, the more these micro-reactions stand out. You begin to notice how people respond not to questions, but to implications, not to statements, but to what those statements threaten or expose. A person may agree verbally while their face tightens for an instant. They may say, "That's fine," while their breathing shortens. They may nod while their eyes briefly harden. None of this automatically means deception. It signals internal friction. Something inside didn't align, and friction is where understanding begins. The mistake is trying to interpret too much, too quickly. Micro-reactions aren't answers, they're markers. They tell you where to slow down, where to observe more closely, where not to push. They help you avoid blind spots. When you ignore micro-reactions, you rely entirely on surface behavior. And surface behavior is easy to manage. People can rehearse it, they can perform it, they can even use it to mislead without malicious intent. Micro-reactions bypass performance. They are brief moments when the mask slips, not because the person wants it to, but because the nervous system reacted before permission was given. This doesn't make you superior, it makes you informed. But that awareness carries responsibility. If you use these signals to pressure, corner, or manipulate, clarity disappears. Pressure activates defense. Defense hides information. The moment you push, the system closes. The purpose of noticing micro-reactions isn't to exploit them, it's to respect what they reveal. They tell you when to pause, when to change direction, when to give space, when to remain silent. Silence plays a critical role here again. When you don't react to micro-reactions, when you don't comment on them or chase explanations, people relax. They assume they weren't noticed, and in that safety, more signals appear naturally. Understanding deepens without confrontation. You begin to see patterns instead of isolated moments, the same reaction repeating around similar topics, the same tension appearing with certain people, the same softening when pressure is removed. Patterns don't lie. This also turns the lens inward. You start noticing your own micro-reactions, the moments when you tense, avoid, or prepare to defend, and instead of judging yourself, you begin to see where your own unresolved edges live. This awareness builds emotional maturity. You stop being surprised by your reactions. You stop being controlled by them. You learn to regulate before they turn into behavior. Micro-reactions are not flaws. They are signals. They show you what matters, what threatens, what resonates. And once you train yourself to notice them quietly and calmly, without interpretation, you stop being confused by people. You don't need them to explain themselves. Their body already did. Chapter 5. The Psychology of Personal Space. Before a person speaks, they choose a distance. That distance is not random. It is psychological. Personal space is one of the clearest, least discussed signals of how someone feels about you, about themselves, and about the situation they're in. It operates quietly, constantly, and almost entirely outside conscious awareness. People often think of personal space as a cultural habit, and culture does influence it. But beneath culture is something more basic: regulation. The body adjusts distance to manage comfort, safety, and control. When someone feels at ease, their space softens. They allow closeness without tension. Their body doesn't brace. Their posture stays open even as proximity increases. When someone feels emotionally or psychologically threatened, their space hardens. They step back. They angle their body. They place objects between you and them. A chair, a table, a phone, anything that creates a boundary. These movements are rarely deliberate. They're automatic responses to internal states. Most people miss them because they happen gradually. A small step back, a slight shift to the side, nothing dramatic. But these adjustments reveal exactly how safe or unsafe someone feels. Silence amplifies this information. When no one is talking, people become more aware of distance. Without words to fill the space, proximity feels louder. The body responds more honestly. Notice what happens when a conversation pauses. Does the other person lean in slightly, comfortable with closeness, or do they subtly increase distance? Do they turn their torso away while keeping their face toward you? These choices reveal where their boundaries are. Personal space also reflects power dynamics. People who feel secure don't need excessive distance. They don't defend territory aggressively. They can allow closeness without losing composure. People who feel uncertain may create space to regain control. Distance becomes a way to stabilize themselves. This doesn't make them weak. It makes them human. Understanding this prevents misinterpretation. Instead of assuming rejection or disinterest, you see regulation in action. You recognize that distance is often about comfort, not judgment. There's another layer most people overlook: inconsistent spacing. Watch how someone adjusts distance with different people, who they allow close, who they keep at arm's length, who they unconsciously block with objects or posture. These differences aren't accidents. They reveal trust, familiarity, attraction, or defensiveness. And you don't need to ask about any of it. You simply observe. Personal space also shifts with topic. Someone may sit comfortably near you while discussing neutral subjects, then subtly pull away when the conversation turns personal. That movement marks a boundary. Respecting it builds trust. Violating it creates resistance. This is where silence becomes intelligence. When you notice space tightening, you don't push. You pause. You allow the body to recalibrate. Often, when pressure is removed, space relaxes again. Pushing through boundaries, physically or emotionally, never reveals truth. It activates defense, and defense hides information. This awareness turns inward as well. You start noticing your own spatial habits, how close you stand when you're eager, how far you step back when you feel exposed, how you use objects for protection without realizing it. Becoming aware of this doesn't mean forcing yourself closer or farther away. It means regulating your comfort first. When you're settled, your spacing becomes natural. People respond to that. They sense when proximity is calm rather than invasive. They relax into it. And in that relaxation, honesty increases. Personal space isn't about invasion or retreat. It's about alignment. When distance matches emotional comfort, interaction flows. When it doesn't, tension appears. And tension is always a signal. The key isn't to control distance, but to read it. If someone steps back, you don't follow. If they lean in, you don't retreat. You let their body set the rhythm. This communicates respect without words, and respect opens more doors than pressure ever could. As you move forward, remember this: people may say they're open, they may insist they're comfortable, they may claim nothing is wrong, but their body has already chosen how close it wants to be. That choice is honest. When you learn to read personal space quietly and without judgment, you stop misunderstanding people. You stop taking distance personally. You stop confusing boundaries with rejection. You see the truth for what it is: a nervous system regulating itself in real time. And once you understand that, you understand people more clearly than words ever allow. Chapter 6: Stillness versus nervous energy. The difference between stillness and nervous energy isn't subtle, but most people never learn to see it. They confuse movement with confidence. They mistake activity for presence. They assume that someone who talks more, gestures more, reacts faster, must be more engaged, more powerful, more certain. In reality, the opposite is often true. Stillness is not the absence of energy. It is contained energy. Nervous energy is energy without containment. It leaks through movement, speech, and reaction. It appears as restlessness, fidgeting, over-explaining, posture shifts, tapping fingers, constant adjustment. The body is trying to regulate itself and failing. Stillness, by contrast, signals regulation. The nervous system is settled enough that it doesn't need to release excess tension through motion. The body stays quiet because it feels safe. This distinction matters deeply when you're learning to understand people without words. A person with nervous energy is often managing uncertainty. They may not know what they're anxious about, but their body does, and it keeps moving to relieve internal pressure. A still person isn't frozen, they're grounded. Their movements are minimal because they're intentional. Watch how someone responds when a conversation shifts unexpectedly. Does their body settle or does it scatter? Nervous energy intensifies under pressure. You'll see quicker movements, faster speech, more gestures, more self-touching. These aren't habits, they're attempts at regulation. Stillness increases clarity. When someone remains physically calm in uncertain moments, it tells you something important. They aren't scrambling for control. They aren't threatened by silence. They aren't dependent on immediate feedback. This is why still people often feel intimidating, not because they're aggressive, but because they're unreadable to those who rely on noise to orient themselves. Stillness removes the familiar cues people use to predict behavior, and unpredictability creates discomfort. But discomfort reveals. People respond to stillness in different ways depending on their internal state. Some soften, some speak more, some become defensive, some grow unexpectedly transparent. Stillness doesn't cause these reactions, it allows them. This is why calm presence carries more power than confrontation. When you don't mirror nervous energy, you become a reference point. The other person's behavior stands out against your steadiness. You begin to see what belongs to them, not to the situation. Nervous energy often disguises itself as enthusiasm or confidence, but it has a distinct texture. It feels rushed, it lacks rhythm, it doesn't pause naturally. Stillness has rhythm. A still person moves when movement is needed, speaks when there's something to say, and pauses without anxiety. Their actions feel measured, not restrained. This contrast becomes especially clear in silence. When words stop, nervous energy spikes. People shift, clear their throat, laugh, check their phone, fill space. Silence becomes something to escape. Still people don't escape silence. They inhabit it. They allow it to exist without trying to change it. That ability alone reveals a great deal about emotional maturity. There's another layer here, your own state. You can't accurately read nervous energy if you're nervous yourself. Reactivity distorts perception. When your system is activated, everything feels louder, faster, more urgent than it truly is. This is why emotional discipline comes before insight. Learning to regulate your own energy, slowing your breath, grounding your posture, allowing pauses, sharpens perception. Surface noise fades, subtle shifts become visible. And once you feel the difference between stillness and nervous energy within yourself, you recognize it immediately in others. You stop mistaking intensity for truth. You stop confusing speed with certainty. You stop assuming volume equals power. You start seeing containment, and containment is rare. People with containment don't need to convince you of anything. They don't rush to fill space. They don't overreact. They don't chase validation. They wait. And in waiting, they gather information. Nervous energy, by contrast, leaks information constantly. It reveals what someone is avoiding, what they're protecting, where they feel exposed. This isn't something to judge, it's something to understand. When you stop reacting to nervous energy, when you don't mirror it, soothe it or escalate it, people often settle on their own, or they don't. Both outcomes teach you something real. Stillness isn't passive, it's observant. It allows truth to surface without force. As you continue, remember this: the person who can remain still in uncertain moments is the person who sees the most. While others burn energy managing discomfort, they are watching, and nothing reveals the truth faster than that. Chapter 7. Emotional leakage. No one can fully contain what they feel. Even the most controlled person leaks. Emotions aren't concepts. They're physiological events. They move through the nervous system, create pressure, and demand release. When expression is blocked by politeness, fear, strategy, or self-image, that pressure finds another outlet. This is emotional leakage. It doesn't appear as confession. It shows up as tone, timing, and small inconsistencies that don't match the words being spoken. People believe they're hiding emotion when they keep their voice calm or their language neutral. But emotion doesn't need language. It needs movement. And if it can't move through speech, it moves through something else. A forced smile that never reaches the eyes. A sudden edge in an otherwise polite sentence. A sigh that arrives too early or too late. A pause that lingers where it shouldn't. These aren't accidents. They're the body releasing excess emotional energy while the mind insists everything is fine. This is why emotional leakage is most visible during restraint. When someone is trying to stay composed, respectful, professional, or agreeable, the contrast between control and pressure sharpens. The tighter the grip, the more noticeable the leak. Silence again plays a critical role. When conversation slows, emotional leakage grows louder. Without words to distract or redirect attention, small shifts carry more weight. A change in breathing, a subtle exhale, tension around the mouth. These moments reveal not only what someone feels, but what they're trying not to feel. And that distinction matters. Someone who openly expresses emotion isn't leaking, they're releasing. Leakage happens when emotion is denied or suppressed. That's why emotionally honest people are often easier to read. There's less contradiction between what they feel and what they show. Their signals align. But when alignment breaks, leakage appears. Most people miss this because they focus on content. They listen to explanations. They analyze logic. They try to understand people through meaning instead of energy. But emotional energy doesn't lie. It only shifts form. You notice leakage most clearly when words and emotion don't align. Someone says they don't care, but their voice tightens. They claim they're calm, yet their movements sharpen. They insist they're fine, while their breathing grows shallow. These contradictions aren't intentional. They're involuntary. And they don't mean someone is bad or deceptive. They mean someone is human. Understanding emotional leakage keeps you from being confused by mixed signals. Instead of asking why someone says one thing and does another, you recognize that the body and mind aren't aligned yet. That awareness creates patience. It also protects you. When you can recognize leakage, you stop taking emotional undercurrents personally. You see when tension belongs to the other person's internal conflict, not to you. This prevents unnecessary escalation. If you respond to leakage with pressure, the system tightens, defense increases, honesty retreats. But if you respond with steadiness and silence, something else occurs. The body relaxes. When emotional pressure no longer needs to be managed externally, it often resolves internally. The leak slows. The person either regains coherence or reveals more. Again, both outcomes matter. There is a darker side to emotional leakage that becomes clear over time. People who chronically suppress emotion leak it in patterns: sarcasm, passive aggression, constant irritability, subtle contempt. These aren't personality traits. They are unresolved emotional pressure expressed indirectly. Recognizing this prevents mislabeling people. You begin to see behavior as expression, not identity. And just as important, you start noticing your own leakage. The moments when your tone shifts unexpectedly, when irritation rises without a clear reason, when you withdraw instead of responding. These aren't failures, they're signals. When you learn to observe your own emotional leakage without judgment, self-awareness grows. You stop being surprised by your reactions. You stop letting them run your behavior. This is emotional discipline, not suppression, but recognition. People who understand emotional leakage don't demand explanations. They don't force clarity. They allow time. Time combined with safety resolves more emotional tension than confrontation ever does. Remember this as you move forward. People may manage their words carefully. They may present a controlled image. They may believe they're hiding everything that matters. But emotion always finds a way out. It leaks through tone, timing, posture, and silence. And once you learn to notice it quietly, calmly, without reaction, you stop getting lost in what people say. You understand what they're carrying, and that understanding changes everything. Chapter 8. Patterns matter more than moments. Most people try to understand others by focusing on moments. A single comment, one reaction, a particular look or tone. Then they draw conclusions. This is where misunderstanding begins. Human behavior isn't a snapshot, it's a sequence. A moment can mislead. Stress, fatigue, distraction, or context can distort behavior temporarily. Anyone can act out of character once, anyone can misstep. But patterns don't lie. A pattern is behavior repeated under similar conditions. It reveals what's stable, not what's situational. And stability is where truth lives. This is why experienced observers don't rush to interpret. They wait. They collect information over time. They notice what repeats. Silence is essential here. When you don't react strongly to individual moments, when you don't confront, accuse, or demand explanations, people keep behaving naturally. They don't feel the need to correct or perform. Patterns emerge. You begin to see who consistently avoids certain topics, who grows tense around specific people, who relaxes only in certain environments, who always rushes to fill silence, who repeatedly over-explains when not challenged. These repetitions reveal far more than any isolated incident ever could. The problem with focusing on moments is emotional reactivity. When something surprises or irritates you, your nervous system activates. You seek meaning immediately, you want resolution. But urgency narrows perception. It pushes you to explain before you understand. Pattern recognition requires patience. It requires emotional control. You must tolerate uncertainty long enough for behavior to reveal itself. This is difficult for those who crave fast clarity, but clarity earned slowly is far more accurate. Consider boundaries. In a single moment, someone might respect a boundary because they're in a good mood or because others are watching, but patterns reveal whether that respect is real. Do they adjust consistently, or do they test it again later? Do they comply outwardly but express irritation elsewhere? Patterns answer questions moments never can. The same is true of honesty. One truthful statement doesn't make someone honest. One inconsistency doesn't make someone deceptive. But repeated alignment or misalignment between words and behavior forms a pattern. That pattern becomes predictable. And predictability isn't about control, it's about safety. When you can anticipate behavior based on pattern, you stop being surprised, you stop making excuses, you stop rationalizing red flags or overvaluing isolated positives. You see the person as they truly are. This also prevents overinterpretation. Instead of obsessing over what a single action meant, you ask a quieter question. Does this keep happening? If it does, it matters. Silence helps you remain neutral while patterns emerge. When you don't comment on every subtle shift, people don't feel scrutinized. They continue acting naturally, and natural behavior is honest behavior. Another reason patterns matter is emotional leakage. As you've learned, people leak emotion when they suppress it. Those leaks repeat. The same sarcasm, the same defensiveness, the same withdrawal. Over time, you begin to see emotional structure. You notice where someone feels threatened, insecure, entitled, or safe. This knowledge allows you to respond strategically rather than emotionally. You stop reacting to noise, you respond to structure. Patterns also shield you from projection. When you focus on isolated moments, your own mood and history can distort interpretation. You impose meaning on behavior based on fear or hope. Patterns reduce that bias. They ground your understanding in observation rather than imagination. This is why stillness and silence are foundational. Without them, you can't stay present long enough to see repetition. You get pulled into the drama of the moment. With them, you remain anchored. You also begin to notice your own patterns, how you respond to silence, how you react to uncertainty, how you repeat behaviors in similar situations. This self-observation is uncomfortable but necessary. It reveals where you are predictable, reactive, or avoiding something. Awareness of your own patterns increases empathy. You judge less, you understand more, and with understanding comes choice. Remember this: moments can mislead, patterns clarify. Anyone can perform once. No one can perform consistently without revealing themselves. If you want to understand people without words, don't chase moments. Watch what repeats. Let time do the work. Let silence hold the space. The truth will show itself, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. Once you see the pattern, you won't need confirmation. You'll already know. Chapter 9. Why calm people see more. Calmness isn't a personality trait. It's a nervous system state, and that state determines how much of reality you can perceive. When the nervous system is activated by fear, excitement, urgency, or the need to impress, attention narrows. The mind focuses on threats, outcomes, and self-protection. Perception collapses inward. You see less, not because there's less to see, but because your system is busy managing itself. This is why anxious people miss obvious signals, why emotionally reactive people misread intentions, and why those craving approval often misunderstand others. Calm people are different. They aren't busy managing internal chaos. Their attention remains available. They notice subtleties, shifts in tone, changes in posture, the timing of reactions. They don't need to scan for danger. They don't need to rush for certainty. They can afford to observe. Calm creates bandwidth. This is the hidden advantage of emotional regulation. It's not about looking composed. It's about having enough internal space to take in information without distortion. When you're calm, silence doesn't feel threatening. It feels neutral. That neutrality lets you remain present instead of reactive, and presence sharpens perception. You begin to notice how people respond when they aren't being managed. You observe what happens when expectations drop, when pressure is removed, when nothing is demanded. These are the moments when truth surfaces. Calm people resist the urge to resolve ambiguity too quickly. They can sit with uncertainty without filling it with assumptions. They allow clarity to emerge through behavior, not speculation. This patience is rare. Most people mistake quick conclusions for intelligence. They equate certainty with strength. But premature certainty often comes from discomfort, not insight. Calm people don't need immediate answers. They trust time. They let information unfold. This doesn't make them passive. It makes them precise. Another reason calm people see more is that they don't trigger defensive responses. Emotional intensity sparks protection. Calm presence disarms it. When someone feels safe, they reveal more, not deliberately, but naturally. Their body relaxes, their behavior softens, their patterns become visible. Calm is contagious. When you regulate yourself, others often mirror that regulation unconsciously. Conversations slow, reactions ease, noise decreases, and in that quiet, details emerge. This is why calm individuals often seem insightful effortlessly. They aren't forcing understanding, they're allowing it. There's also a paradox. Calm people don't hunt for meaning. They don't aggressively scan for signals. They simply notice. Active analysis can block perception. When you try to decode someone, you're no longer present. You're in your head. You miss what's happening in real time. Calm keeps you grounded in the moment where information lives. Stillness, silence, and calm form a system. Each supports the other. Together they create conditions where truth is hard to hide. But calm is often misunderstood. Lack of urgency can appear as disinterest. Silence can seem like judgment. Refusal to react can unsettle those reliant on emotional cues. Calm is not cold, it is steadiness, and steadiness sees clearly. Developing calm isn't suppressing emotion. Suppression increases internal pressure and backfires. Calm comes from allowing emotion without letting it control behavior. It comes from breathing through discomfort, slowing responses, choosing observation over reaction. This practice takes time, but its effects compound. As you become calmer, you're harder to manipulate, not because you resist others, but because you aren't pulled off center. You stop reacting to emotional hooks. You stop rushing decisions. You stop mistaking intensity for truth. And in that stability, understanding deepens. People show who they are when you don't chase, challenge, or manage them. They reveal themselves when nothing is demanded. Calm creates that space. As you approach the final chapter, remember, a mind not at war with itself has room to see others clearly. Calm is not weakness, it's perception unclouded. Once you experience how much more you notice from that state, you understand why those who see the most often speak the least. Chapter 10. How to stay silent and let others reveal themselves. Silence is not the absence of action, it's a deliberate choice. Most people speak because they feel something rising inside, an urge to clarify, defend, impress, connect, or relieve discomfort. They confuse expression with control. They think if they don't speak, they'll lose the moment. In reality, silence often creates the moment. When you stay silent, you remove pressure. When pressure disappears, people behave more honestly. This is the final and most challenging skill, not just noticing silence, but holding it. Holding silence means resisting the impulse to fill space. It means letting pauses exist without rescuing others. It means staying grounded when others grow restless. This doesn't come naturally. Silence exposes your own internal reactions. It brings awareness to your need for validation, certainty, or approval. That's why most people avoid it. But once you learn to remain steady, silence becomes an invitation for others to continue, to explain more, to justify, to reveal. People tend to reveal themselves when they believe they're not being evaluated. Silence creates that illusion. Without immediate feedback, they don't know how they're being perceived, so they fill the gap. And what they fill it with is rarely strategic. They talk too much, overcorrect, contradict themselves. They expose priorities they didn't intend to share. This is not manipulation, it's human nature. Silence removes the mirror people use to adjust their behavior. Without your reactions, they lose reference points. In that uncertainty, their default patterns surface. The key is how you stay silent. Silence paired with tension feels like judgment. Silence paired with calm feels like safety. Your posture matters. Your breathing matters. Your gaze matters. If you hold silence with rigidity, people sense threat. They shut down or become defensive. But if your silence is relaxed, with open posture, steady breath, and neutral expression, it signals presence, not pressure. This kind of silence invites continuation. You'll notice it in conversations when someone stops speaking and looks at you expecting a response. Instead of jumping in, you simply wait. not coldly, not challengingly, just present. Often, they'll continue on their own. They'll clarify, add details they didn't plan to share, expose uncertainty. These spontaneous attempts to regain balance reveal truth. Another powerful use of silence is after someone says something important. Most people rush to respond. They want to show understanding, agree, disagree, or move on. But when you pause instead, when you let their words hang, something interesting happens. They reflect, sometimes soften, sometimes intensify, sometimes retract, sometimes double down. Each response gives insight into how they relate to their own words. Silence also prevents escalation. When emotions rise, speaking often adds fuel. Calm silence allows intensity to burn itself out. People either regulate themselves or reveal that they can't. Both outcomes are informative. This doesn't mean never speaking. It means choosing when speech adds value and when it interferes. The mistake is using silence as a tactic instead of a state. If you're silent while internally agitated, people feel it. The body communicates tension even when the mouth is closed. True silence comes from regulation, not restraint. That's why the previous chapters matter. Stillness, calm, pattern recognition, emotional awareness. They prepare you to hold silence without strain. When silence becomes natural, not forced, it stops feeling like a technique. It becomes part of your presence, and presence reveals people. Over time, you'll notice a shift. You won't need to ask many questions. You won't need to press for answers. You'll receive information simply by allowing space. People reveal what matters to them, what threatens them, what they avoid, what they protect. Not because you demanded it, but because silence gave them room to speak. This skill changes how you listen. You stop listening for content and start listening for movement. You notice where energy rises, where it stalls, where it leaks. You also become more selective with your own words. You speak less but more precisely. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop filling silence to ease your own discomfort. This shifts power quietly. Not power over others, but power within yourself. You no longer rush to be understood. You no longer chase clarity. You allow understanding to come to you. And it does. Silence is not emptiness. It is a mirror. When you learn to stand comfortably in front of it, others can't help but see themselves more clearly. In that reflection, truth reveals itself without a single word being spoken. Understanding people was never meant to be loud. It was never about clever questions, persuasive words, or forcing clarity. The deepest understanding has always belonged to those who wait, those who can remain present without controlling the moment. Throughout this audiobook, one principle quietly repeats: truth does not need to be chased. It emerges when space is allowed. Silence is not a void, it is a field of information. When you slow down, regulate your own reactions, stop filling every gap, you notice what most people miss. The body speaking before the mind, eyes negotiating comfort and control, micro-reactions surfacing before words, emotional leakage slipping through restraint, patterns revealing what moments cannot. None of this requires confrontation. None of it requires suspicion. It requires steadiness. As you've seen, calmness is not passivity, it is readiness. It keeps perception clear instead of distorted by urgency, fear, or desire for approval. From that state, you stop misreading intensity as truth. You stop confusing noise with meaning. You learn to trust what you observe over what you're told. This shift changes more than how you understand others. It changes how you relate to yourself. You become aware of your own signals, your habits of filling silence, over-explaining, reacting too quickly. Instead of judging, you learn to regulate. You pause, you breathe, you allow space. In that space, clarity returns. You no longer feel the need to decode every interaction. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop questioning your intuition. You understand that clarity doesn't come from more information, it comes from less interference. Silence removes interference. This doesn't make you distant or cold. It often makes you more grounded and approachable. People feel safer around those who aren't trying to extract something from them. Safety invites authenticity, and authenticity reveals truth. As you practice this, conversations change. People talk more freely. They explain themselves without being asked. They reveal priorities, insecurities, and intentions naturally. You don't need to expose anyone. They expose themselves. This is not about gaining advantage over others. It's about freedom from confusion. When you see clearly, you stop being pulled into unnecessary drama. You stop investing energy where it isn't returned. You stop mistaking surface behavior for substance. You choose better. You respond instead of react. You move with discernment. And perhaps most importantly, you learn when not to engage. Not every truth needs addressing. Not every revelation requires action. Sometimes understanding is enough. Sometimes distance, not dialogue, is the clearest move. Silence teaches you that too. Mastery here is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't impress rooms. But it changes outcomes quietly. You'll notice it in how little you need to say, how often others fill the space for you, and how rarely you feel confused by people's behavior. The world is loud, opinions constant, explanations endless, but truth is quiet. Those who listen to silence are rarely surprised by what they discover. You now have that skill, not as a technique, not as a trick, but as a way of being. Stay calm. Stay present. Let space do the work. The more silent you become inside, the clearer everything outside becomes. And once you've seen that, you never need words to understand.